Hello, everyone. So, lots of you probably know about Kantar Media, so you know that it's a big global organization with all these people in all these countries, working for lots of different clients. I'm based here in the UK, but just to confuse you a little bit, today I'm and I look after the bar business, but just to be confusing today, I'm going to talk about Norway instead, and some of the exciting developments that we've got going through there. So we're all incredibly aware of the massive changes going on around us, and now I've given you the gift of David Bowie in your head for the rest of the day. Of particular relevance to us and what we talk about today is about what the home of today looks like. So I have to say I'm sort of an old-fashioned researcher or psychologist, so I always kind of want to ground it in people and what people are doing. And so I think about their home. And if you think about the home today, so this is where we can easily see all the changes. For most people, that said, there is still a big television in the lounge. In fact, it's getting bigger. Some of the young, quite digital savvy people on my team just went off recently and saw this massive, apparently like 71-inch television. They were going nuts and desperate to have it, probably in their 2 square foot, living rooms that we all live in London. So I think that's human nature. People want, it's a visual experience. People want to see it on the biggest screen they can. And also for lots of people, television is still a shared experience. But of course, the home today also has tablets and smartphones, laptops. Don't forget laptops and PCs. For those without a TV, it's the best screen. It's the biggest screen they probably have. And for people in school, it's still a good way to do homework and schoolwork. Lots of people still have other cheaper televisions. They might want to kick their kids off onto the tablet, but they probably still have an old television kicking around somewhere. Wi-Fi, home networking, all of that. I've put in the virtual meter mask as well, which I have to admit to being a little skeptical that I think that will go mainstream television. I think if audiences don't want to wear 3D glasses, they're unlikely to wear quite a big, heavy, expensive thing on their head that makes them feel a bit sick. But I think there will always be teenagers living in a home. It has definitely a place in some immersive experiences, games, quite immersive content programs. But we also have to be clear, and I think about this with my job particularly, outside of the digital bubble that we all live in, there still are houses that have just one television and are 3G only. Call it digital polarization, if you like. But the reality is that not everyone is moving at the same pace of change. And for someone like me who worries about measurement and measuring everything, I have to be aware of that, both the very advanced and the not so advanced. And then there's all of what's happening outside of the home. So it's always been true that some viewing was done out of home and therefore out of scope of the trading currency measurement. Pubs are a classic example of that in the UK. But increasingly, we also have out-of-home downloaded content. Television's a great way to pass the time when you're bored, waiting for a bus or on a tube or a train. And out-of-home was particularly important in Norway, which is why I'm bringing it up here, because we're going to come back to that. So all of these things are what's making it challenging and interesting for measurement researchers at the minute. And a lot of these were the challenges faced by our colleagues in Norway. So just a tiny bit for those who aren't familiar with it, television measurement in Norway is organised via a MOC, or a Media Owner Committee. The MOC includes the main broadcasters in Norway, and they were interested in much of the same that we're interested with here in the UK. If you put it in brief, they wanted to measure everything, everywhere, anytime, linear, non-linear, online, offline, but also critically for them out of home. Apparently, many people in Norway have summer houses and they decamp to that, and all that viewing is being missed. Kind of makes you want to live in Norway when you realize that it must be a nice thing to live there. So they were worrying about all of the things that we worry about, plus out of home was a big dimension for them. For us, this was a really exciting brief and a chance to get stuck into this new world of measurement, the world of measuring TV, but a new type of TV, total video. I heard someone else mention that today already. Put another way, it's sort of television in all of its forms. This is our blueprint for audience measurement. If you like, it's our ideal. It has a core panel at its base, but builds in the scale and granularity that comes from other sources. So it acknowledges that whilst a core panel is essential, there's a definite benefit from bringing in other sources of data, return path data, online census data, other panel data, set meter panels, personal people meters, and potentially first and third party demographics, which again, we've talked about a bit today. Norway is one of the first places where we're really seeing this blueprint realized. So here's what they're doing. It's very much a hybrid model of measurement. So there is a core panel called Panel A here. It's a new panel that we're creating there. It has 3,000 individuals aged 10 to 79. They have people meters, the actual sort of hardware meter installed on their televisions when they have to log in using a remote control, just like in the UK and many other markets. In addition, they have a wireless router. They will have a wireless router in their homes, what we call a focal meter. And the focal meter will identify all the devices and screens that the household members use to watch online video over the home Wi-Fi. So then we're able to take those devices and extract the data from that viewing out of the census data for all of the tagged players, both in-home and out-of-home. So if you have the device ID, you can extract it from the census data, and it doesn't matter whether you watched it in the home or out of the home. Individual viewing is then assigned via an algorithm. Someone else mentioned algorithm. That's probably one of the jargon bingo words you're all looking for, based on device ownership and usage information that we collect from the panel. So that's Panel A. In addition, there is Panel B, which focuses on out-of-home viewing. It has 1,500 individuals, again, aged 20 to 79, and they carry our little personal people meter called Rate on Air with them, and it detects what they're watching via audio watermarks in the broadcast. These two panels are then fused daily to create an integrated panel. To be fair, Norway already had a two-panel solution in order to include out-of-home viewing from the portable. At that point, it was from the people meters that were run for radio. And what they could see, and this is, I'm losing track of when this has been in place, but this has been in place a couple of years, they could see an increase in average ratings of 6 to 7% by including the out-of-home viewing. So it is a massive thing for them. As a last step, we also use all the available census data for online content and harmonize the panel data with these. So the hybrid data integration solution, actually it's one that Kantar Media developed for and deploy currently for SKO in the Netherlands. SKO is the JIC, the Joint Industry Committee in the Netherlands, for online only in the Netherlands. It'll be used in Norway, both for programs and for commercials. And we're pretty convinced that this is going to help improve the quality and the accuracy of the reported audiences. Another key difference in this new system is that it's content-led. I've used another one of the jargon words already. Ordinarily, in the UK, for example, we measure based on the linear schedule. But in Norway, they're going to calculate audiences by using a unique content ID, not the slot and the channel. So this does require a bit more work on behalf of the broadcaster, on the part of the broadcaster. They have to provide a content ID. It's a unique identifier for any piece of content, either a program or a spot. It must be inserted and used in various parts of the production system, so the measured audiences can be combined at the end. It has to, first of all, be in the tags implemented in the broadcaster's online players, but both the online and the linear systems must contain unique identifiers for each specific piece of content so that we can knit it all together at the back end. This makes sure that the viewing tracked on our panel is in the census data and it all ties together. Secondly, we need metadata to be provided for each of the content IDs so that we're able to match the broadcast viewing to a specific program and on a linear channel and online. So to tie everything together, content IDs are really critical. I think what that implies is one of the other big differences in what is going on in Norway is that the whole setup would not have been possible without really close involvement of the broadcasters. It's quite a different relationship between agency and broadcaster. Our clients there have to invest and build infrastructures to feed the overall production system. You can see they have to tag, so there's a huge element of tagging their own players, and to the required specifications, and they have to, as I've just mentioned, provide the content IDs, including and metadata, and that metadata has to include genre information. So there's quite a lot in there, and I think what's clear is that modern measurement is no longer quite the same as what it used to be. It's more of a relationship, a mutual relationship with commitments and deliverables on both sides. Ultimately, I really think this is better and will strengthen the service, but there's no doubt about it, it's a big change from where we are today. As much as the Norway approach is ambitious and exciting, there are still more things that you could do with this kind of measurement at its base. So extended time shift in the UK, we already go beyond 7 days to 28 days. In Norway, in fact, they're going to go to 99 days. It's possible to think beyond just video into other online consumption. So the Netherlands has now a combined JIC for TV and internet, for example, and the ambition in Spain, where Kantar owns the TV data and Comscore owns the online currencies, to go further than just video. Real-time ratings, some of you may know this, are a very real delivery in our markets in South America. They call it like crack. People just sit there and watch the ratings come in as they're watching the television. In South America also, they've combined TV ratings with the world panel data to provide some of the combined buy and Y data. It's very early days, I'd say, on the programmatic, but lots of work being done behind the scenes to help support that. And finally, some of you may be aware of things like Kantar Twitter TV ratings, which look at the social media conversation that happens around TV programs. But for Norway, the big year is 2018, and 2017, therefore, will be a busy year, doing lots of preparation and testing ahead of D-Day in January 2018. Whilst it may not include everything on our wish list, we think that once in place, there'll be many benefits to all parts of the industry. It will give a full content-led view across devices and over a much longer period of time. So what's not to like about that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margo. I'm a researcher and I'm into video audience measurement, and Margo put across with great clarity an extremely complicated topic. So thank you very much indeed. I think it's really encouraging, but 2018, how long have we been waiting in a lot of these countries? You know, that's not a dig at Kantar, because I know Nielsen, GfK have the same issues. This is seriously complicated stuff. There's some people missing off those charts. This is just the broadcasters with their online video catch-up and VOD opportunities, and we need to address that question. Perhaps we might mention that in the panel later on. Are there any immediate questions for Margo that anybody would like to ask? Now, there's going to be a contract here. We're going to get some questions out of this audience, otherwise we're not going for drinks at 5:30. But please, we need to get some interactivity going here. But if there's no immediate questions, oh, yes, one over there. Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan.
You're going to ask me an awkward question. I was on the panel with you last year, I remember.
Please, Jonathan, name and company and your question.
Thank you again. Just how many households are there, Jonathan Sykes from Genius Digital, how many households are there in Norway and how many are on your panel?
Oh, golly, I can't answer that. Sorry, this is where I'm cheating because I'm based in the UK. I don't know how many households there are in Norway. So I know how many individuals there are in there.
2.4 million.
Okay. It's about 2.5 million, yes, about 5 million population.
So how many are on the panel?
Well, again, I don't know. I know the individuals figure, so sorry, I don't know.
How many was
Unless John is here and knows.
3,000 on the
3,000 individuals. So
okay.
Roughly speaking, I would guess that's probably 1,500 households.
1,500 to 1,800.
But I may be totally wrong.
I guess my point is brilliant, but if it's enough,
that's well, I guess that's the endless question about a panel, and I think at heart that's partly why it is building in the other sources of data. So is enough? It's the same question you'd ask here. It is incredibly carefully constructed to be representative from a statistician's perspective. Yeah, it's enough. You do not have to interview at every household. That said, of course, with a long tail of viewing, and you get zero. That is why some of these, I'm going to use another word, big data elements go in there, and exactly why the census data is going in this case to help. To fill in, to add in those levels that you could never afford to have in a panel. You'd never be able to have a panel big enough to do that. And I think that's why those other pieces are coming into it, and exactly why that's in our blueprint. They're using census data. We're talking in other places about, do you build in RPD data, other sources of data?
Are there any more questions? Thank you, Jonathan.
Oh, wait.
Another one up the back. It's Catty. Yep.
I can tell. It's just trying to find out what's the main difference between what's happening in Norway and in the Netherlands.
So the main difference is that this is a single source. Well, there's more of a single source element here. So there are two panels. That makes it sound ludicrous, but the second panel is an out-of-home viewing panel. In panel A, it is one panel from which you will get TV and online. Whereas in Norway, they have a TV panel and an online panel, and they're coming together. So in both cases, there will be a case of fusion, but for different, they bring in different elements of it.
And when you say single source, Margo, that's across devices and screens.
It is for panel A. So what it doesn't have is the out of home. Yeah. So that's what you get from panel B. But in panel A, it is that in that home there will be a router which will enable them to get the online
most importantly,
viewing.
with the devices given a user ID in terms of a person. That was my understanding.
So the way that Norway is solving this, again, all countries are solving this slightly differently. The way that Norway is solving this is to not ask people to log into their online device, but to assign that through an algorithm based on who uses the device. So the panelists have to say, it's me, Margo, I own that device and I use it 50% of the time and my son uses it 50% of the time, or whatever it is. And they have to keep that updated. So that feeds into it. Along with, I have to say, a lot of the content metadata. So that's another one of those behind the scenes kind of thing. That element of knowing what genre it is oddly important in that metadata to assign it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Catty. Okay. Oh yes, another one. A hat trick, Margo. Well done.
No, it's just about the set-top box.
There's a microphone just there.
Hello. Just a question about the set-top box. Did you receive some figures from them, or did you just build your analysis on the other data?
So they don't have, in Norway, Norway isn't using set-top box data, they're using census data for the online element of it and panel data for the television data. It's just that in theory, you could incorporate into it return path data. And some markets are working on that. That happens to not be what they're doing in Norway, but there are other markets in which we are using that kind of data.
Such as here.
Well.
Hopefully. Justin, if you're here. Any other questions for Margo? Okay, thank you very much. Please show your appreciation. Thank you, Margo.